Why did B-17 gunners have a 20% lower survival rate than D-Day assault troops? How did the Flying Fortress with 13 machine guns become known as the Flying Coffin? Why were teenage boys in bomber turrets more likely to die than Marines at Iwo Jima? And how did a defensive weapons system so sophisticated it cost more than the plane itself fail so completely? You're going to hear all that and more through the intense story of the B-17's defensive armament. Let's begin. In the early 1930s, the U.S. Army Air Corps believed wars could be won by strategic bombing alone. Boeing's Model 299 prototype first flew in July 1935, incorporating revolutionary defensive thinking. 13 Browning 50 caliber machine guns positioned to create overlapping fields of fire. No approach angle was theoretically safe. The Seattle Times reporter who saw it coined the name Flying Fortress, and Boeing trademarked it immediately. The concept was beautiful. Self-defending bomber formations that needed no fighter escort. Engineers were tasked with developing the most sophisticated defensive system ever put in an aircraft. The B-17G model had a chin turret with 2 guns, top turret with 2 guns, ball turret underneath with 2 guns, tail position with 2 guns, 2 waist guns, and 2 cheek guns. That's 13 positions requiring 10 crew members: pilot, co-pilot, bombardier, navigator, flight engineer, top turret gunner, radio operator, gunner, ball turret gunner, 2 waist gunners, and tail gunner. They didn't know it at the time, but they had just created a statistical death trap for 60% of those positions. It didn't take long for it to see combat. The first B-17 raids from England began in August 1942, and the results were enough to get the attention of Luftwaffe High Command. But not for reasons Americans expected. German pilot Adolf Galland reported, "The defensive fire was impressive visually but ineffective practically. We learned to attack from 12 o'clock high, directly ahead, where fewer guns could track." Real combat immediately shattered the Flying Fortress myth. Physics made aerial gunnery nearly impossible. B-17s flew at 180 miles per hour. Bf-109s attacked at 350 miles per hour. Combined closing speed, 530 miles per hour, 777 feet per second. Gunners had 2 seconds to identify, track, aim, and fire at targets pulling 6 G-turns while the bomber flew straight and level. At 25,000 feet altitude, gunners wore electrically heated suits, oxygen masks, and gloves so thick they could barely feel triggers. Temperature, minus 60 degrees Fahrenheit. But no one fully realized just what they had created yet. The defensive system looked formidable on paper. Each gun could fire 850 rounds per minute. Theoretical throw weight, 11 to 50 rounds per minute from one bomber. A 36-plane formation could theoretically put out 397,800 rounds per minute. German fighters should have been shredded approaching such firepower. By this time, they were further refining defensive systems. The Sperry ball turret was an engineering marvel. Fully rotating sphere with 2 guns, periscope sights, and hydraulic controls. Cost $45,000 in 1943. More than 2 P-51 fighters. Gunner size limit, 5'4", 130 pounds maximum. These were literally teenagers, average age 19, folded into fetal position for 8-hour missions. The chin turret followed after head-on attacks proved devastating. Remote-controlled turrets were tested. Computing gun sights that calculated lead angles were introduced. Most importantly, the formation tactics evolved. Combat boxes of 1821 bombers creating interlocking fire zones. This highly sophisticated system gave the B-17 that notorious reputation as a flying fortress. The dark thing is that as war progressed, gunner casualties reached horrifying levels. Statistical analysis revealed the terrible truth. B-17 gunners had 45% casualty rates over a 25-mission tour. Infantry in Europe, 25%. Marines in the Pacific, 29%. The ball turret gunner had it worst. When hydraulics failed, he couldn't escape. Planes landed with dead gunners trapped in their spheres. A well-trained gunner at stateside ranges could hit 10% of targets. In combat at altitude, 0.5% hit rate. 1 hit per 200 rounds fired. German fighters needed 20 cannon shells to destroy a B-17. The mathematics were insurmountable. Waist gunner Sergeant Bill Winchell recorded, "We made noise to feel useful while fighters executed us. I fired thousands of rounds, might have hit something once." Their crews would pay a steep price for manning these positions. 26,000 B-17 crew members died over Europe. Another 28,000 became prisoners of war. The 8th Air Force alone suffered more killed than the entire Marine Corps in the Pacific. Life expectancy for replacement gunners arriving in 1943, 11 missions. Tour requirement, 25 missions, later raised to 35. The tail gunner position had 67% casualties, highest of any position in any service. German fighters discovered that killing the tail gunner first let them attack from the 6 o'clock position with impunity. Focke-Wulf 1D90s carried 30mm cannons specifically to blow off B-17 tails with single hits. Tail gunner Charles Payne described reality. "We were clay pigeons with machine guns. The fighters had cannon. Do the math." Veterans knew the truth. Ball turret gunner Bob Hansen survived 35 missions. Flying Fortress was propaganda. We were flying targets. 13 guns meant nothing when fighters attacked from beyond our range, fired cannon, and dove away. We'd spray ammunition at empty sky while friends burned. As 1944 was rolling around, the tide had turned decisively, but at horrific cost. Operation Point Blank, the bomber offensive before D-Day, cost 10,000 aircraft and 100,000 aircrew casualties. The defensive gun system had failed so completely that long-range fighter escorts became mandatory. P-51 Mustangs saved the bomber offensive, not defensive guns. These were some of the most sophisticated defensive systems ever built, yet they failed completely. The Norden bomb sight cost $1.5 billion to develop. The defensive weapons systems cost even more. Combined accuracy: 0.2% of bombs hit targets, 0.5% of defensive bullets hit attackers. Technology couldn't overcome physics. Although impressive, the massed formations couldn't defend themselves. Black Thursday, October 14, 1943, proved it finally. 291 B-17s attacked Schweinfurt, 60 shot down, 138 damaged, 650 men killed or missing. German losses: 35,540. 445 fighters. The myth of self-defending bombers died that day. Every subsequent mission required fighter escort. As the war came to an end, B-17 defensive positions became redundant. The YB-40 gunship variant with 30 machine guns and 11,000 rounds was abandoned. Too heavy to keep formation. Post-war B-17s were immediately scrapped, their defensive systems worthless. Today, 48 B-17s survive of 12,631 built. Most are displayed with gun positions empty, monuments to failed theory. The truth is less cinematic. The flying fortress concept was beautiful engineering defeated by simple physics. Slow bombers couldn't defend against fast fighters with cannon. 10 brave teenagers with machine guns couldn't overcome mathematics. The defensive weapons cost more than the planes, added tons of weight, required 60% of crew, and achieved nothing. B-17 gunners had the worst job in the entire war. Lower survival rates than any infantry, any Marines, any other airmen. They sat in aluminum tubes at 25,000 feet, froze for hours, watched friends explode, sprayed bullets at nothing, and mostly died. The flying fortress wasn't. It was a flying coffin that needed fighters to survive. Defensive guns were psychological comfort, not tactical reality. 26,000 gunners died, proving bombers can't defend themselves. That's the dark mathematics of strategic bombing.